Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with artist, author, and speaker Dave Letterfly. Dave, thanks for joining me today.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Absolutely, looking forward to it. And one thing I didn't mention in the brief intro there was also a fellow wanderer, fellow nomad.
Yeah.
Um, so, Dave, before we get started, though, just introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Dave today?
Dave today is, like you were mentioning, an itinerant artist and speaker and author. I started with a career playing the drums on the circus right after high school that introduced me to the uh the the attributes of living in a wonderful and interesting life, traveling all over all of North America, and staying involved with doing creative things. So I became an artist, a horse trainer, and because of all these interesting stories, I began to do some writing, and that ended up becoming my first book. I got 3 other books with editors now, and I keep having additional ideas. And the ongoing theme ends up sort of being living an interesting life after hitting the road.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being a collection of all kinds of interesting things that have occurred during this wonderful life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. How did you first get involved with the circus when you were younger?
Well, I was actually imprinted as a child because my dad loved the circus. And then, because of the frustrating family situation I was born into, I had an older brother who produced bizarre behavior that was undiagnosed at that time. They didn't know what it was. Today, it's known as Asperger's. And that just ended up elevating the level of frustration to the point where I had had enough, and I figured out that the solution to this frustrating situation was for me to run away and join the circus. So I did.
That's awesome. And I mean, just that experience at such a young age. Again, traveling, kind of like a group of gypsies, so to speak. Just how did that mold you as a person and just kind of set you in all these other directions of your life?
Well, it introduced me to something that a lot of people on the planet missed, because it's like I'll hear every once in a while, I hear somebody admit to me that they're bored. And I have never been bored in my whole life. I guess it's because I was introduced to a situation that was constantly changing all the time, and there was always another challenge to overcome or an opportunity to embrace, and it was just one after another after another after another. And I guess because of the initial consumption of that experience, it just set me up for uh, evolving into uh, the next level. And I just kept up with the same appetite for adventure and excitement and stimulation and creativity and ongoingly more. Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever been in one place?
For very long. It's interesting that you say that. I had the ambition at one time to become the best sign painter in Jackson, Michigan, and because that was a place that I would frequent all the time. I had a mentor that lived there, and I actually moved there and lived there ongoingly. It was in the middle 80s, and it just happened to coincide with the computer taking over the sign business, because the computer started to develop the ability to cut things out of vinyl that put the sign painter out of business. So even though my intention was to become the best sign painter in that town, uh, situation ended up, I was in the right place at the right time, and I found a huge opportunity, and that took me right back out on the road. And I was on the road right after that experience for a period of 9 years solid before I ended up having the opportunity to settle down and get a have a home of my own. But even though I have a home of my own today, I'm only at home during the winter time. I'm on the road all summer. I just love being on the road.
Yeah. And how do you travel? What are you traveling in these days?
I have a giant truck that pulls a fifth wheel trailer, and hooked on behind that is my antique VW bus. It's an old microbus with Jimi Hendrix painted on the side.
I've seen pictures of the bus. It's pretty
Uh-huh.
cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So, um, I mean, there's so many people who, you know, look at, this nomadic lifestyle that you and I are living as, just bizarre and off the charts. And, I think that's just one of the things that society has taught people to do, that they're supposed to stay in one place and kind of, settle down and, grow roots and all that sort of stuff. And, we were in one place most of our lives till we started doing this back in 2020. And I don't regret that at all. But since we've been traveling, it's like, man, there's just so much to see and experience. And I'm going to ask you a question. I know it's going to be difficult to answer because people ask me this same question and I can't
Okay.
answer it, but I want to see it from a fellow nomad's perspective. But, what is one of your, you know, greatest loves of traveling in general?
The ongoing change with the not only the scenery but especially the people where you get to go. And since I've been doing it so much, one of the first things I ask when I meet somebody is, "Where are you from?" And because I've been so many places, oftentimes I can tell them something interesting about the place that they're from because of my experience. Now, a lot of people don't get this, what we do, because I'll be at, like last week, I was in Wisconsin for the big Harley Davidson thing, the 120th anniversary. And people would say, "Oh, you came all the way from Florida to come here?" And it was like, no, no, I was in the neighborhood. I was in Pennsylvania. And then they go, "Oh, afterwards, you're going to be going all the way back home to Florida?" And I said, "No, no, no, no. I've got another Harley Davidson store, 80 miles away that I go to next." And so a lot of them don't get it because they have that living in a town mindset. Every time
Yeah.
they go on a road trip, they go somewhere and they may have that experience, and then they come back to their home. And it was because of this, because of what I recognized about what was missing in their mindset, I ended up realizing I had something of value to teach. And I wrote a book. It's kind of like a guidebook, and it's called Hit the Road and Thrive, that will be coming out very, very soon. And it's in an effort to provide people with the pieces of the puzzle, because there are a lot of people that envy you and me because we're out on the road living the life of our dreams. And for a lot of reasons, a lot of them never get to do that, whether they don't have the gumption to get off the couch, or maybe that it's because of a self-limiting mindset
Yeah.
that interferes with their ability to head go head first towards the unknown, which is scary for a lot of people. So that's the reason I wrote this guidebook, is in an effort to help people. And the way that it's designed, it's designed to help people open their minds up, whether they ever leave their town or not. It'll still give them something of value that will perhaps change the experience they have while they're going through their daily life in their little town.
Yeah. And I think that limiting mindset really is something that society teaches people,
Oh, yeah.
um, and
Yeah, we
and I think,
learned it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think, I don't think as humans we were meant to be in the same place our entire lives. I think, the Native American Indians probably had it, had something going with their lifestyle of, moving,
Yeah.
as a tribe to different places. But yeah, nowadays society definitely teaches us to, be in one spot and to, work your whole life. And, um, I think people just need to rethink how you can make a living and how you can, make a career. I mean, there's so many things you can do, remotely, um, nowadays, that you don't have to be in
especially
the
today.
same
Yeah.
spot. Yeah, I mean, it's just so many opportunities out there to get out and see the world. And I love what you said. Because I think for me, um, the people is probably one of the things that surprised me the most with our travels. Just how many incredibly amazing people there are out there. And again, we live in a very polarized climate nowadays, and people want to, you watch mainstream media and they want to put up these dividers. But I think if you just sit down and take the time to have a conversation with someone, you find out so quickly that we have so much more in common than what we
Uh-huh.
don't. And it's just a matter of sitting down and having those conversations. And that's one of the things that I've loved so much, about that. It's really allowed me to kind of get out of my shell. I've really been an introvert most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think traveling has allowed me to, strike up conversations with people that I would have never struck up a conversation with in the past.
Uh-huh.
And,
Yeah.
when you're in a campground and, um, just meeting different people, it's amazing. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine some of the stories that you have, um, about some of the people you've met, traveling for, a much longer period of time than what my wife and I have been. So
Mm-hmm.
is there any, you know, story of a random meeting that you'd like to share with us?
A random meeting. I was at Virginia Beach this spring, and at a Harley Davidson store, and one of the salesmen there was named Frenchie. And so whenever he finally came by and said hello to me, I said, "They call you Frenchie. Is that because you're from Quebec?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm from Quebec." Well, I've been all over half of Canada. So I wanted to find out which part of Quebec he was. So I asked him, where in where in Canada are you from? He said, Abitibi. And I went, "Oh yeah, I showed that town with the circus years ago, back in the 70s. It's up by Val d'Or." And his mouth dropped open. He goes, "Yeah, it's right next to Val d'Or. That's where I was born," and stuff. And so we got to talking and this, that, and the other thing. And he's a good sport with a good sense of humor. And after a minute or two, he ends up going, "Hey, you could be my real dad."
What was your reaction to that?
Oh man, we had fun with that. We just had fun. He took me out for Father's Day lunch one day, and we the next thing you know, the story is going around, not only between all of the staff at the store, but especially the guests that are coming and going. We had more fun with that, telling that story over and over and over. It was great.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So, you know, you you're traveling around, you're doing, tell me what you're doing at the Harley stores. Go a little bit into, the type of painting that you're doing there.
Okay, I have developed into a traveling motorcycle artist, and what I do is I set up what I call my art gallery. It's like an art booth. It's got examples of the different styles of art that are typically that we typically put on motorcycles. A bunch of variations of different kinds of styles of pinstriping and pictorial effects and different things for the people to come and walk around and look at and understand what's going on. With a couple of stalls where you put the motorcycle right inside. And I've actually got two motorcycles in my booth right now that are waiting for me to get off this podcast so I can get back with it. And what I explain to people is that it's not like you have to pick something from a catalog, because I'm an artist. If you've got something that's never been done before and you want to see that on your motorcycle, all I got to do is, and I've done so much of this, all I got to do is interview my customer and I start to visualize what it is they have in mind. And then as the result of that idea, I can create something that will capture that aspect of their personality that they want on their motorcycle or their guitar or their cake mixer or their prosthetic leg or any number of things that they bring to me to decorate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. When I was a kid, I had a Chevelle, and one of my dad's friends was a pinstriper, and he put some pinstripes on my Chevelle, and just watching him do it, it was just an amazing process. I mean, you got to have such an incredibly, steady hand, and the fact that he could make, you know, again, it's all being done freehand. It's not like you said,
Uh-huh.
cut from a computer or anything like that, but yet, the left side matched the right side
Mm-hmm.
perfectly. It was just incredible. And I know when you first joined the circus, you eventually became the sign painter. I mean, how did you discover this talent that you had? Um,
Well, I actually, I actually never noticed it because it always came so easy to me. People around me would notice. When I came home from kindergarten, my mother noticed. She said, "What'd you do in school today?" And she said, "Oh, the teacher made us paint something." And I handed her this paper, and she was amazed. And so she would like encourage me by providing me with blank sketchbooks and paints and different kinds of creative things so that I could just play at doing that. And that's what I did. And I remember when I was a little kid and I was big enough to see out of the car, I noticed the pinstriping on the other cars. And I went, hey, I could do that. And actually, even though I went to join the circus to play the drums, before I played the drums for the first time, they somehow discovered that I was creative with paint and they talked me into painting. And I painted Wild Animal Annex on a ticket box. Was the very first thing I did at the circus. So I actually, my career path was probably presented to me. And then I didn't really take it seriously until I was in my mid 20s because I ended up developing the ambition of having a 6 pony Liberty Act on the circus. And the ponies kept eating. And that required me to keep figuring out ways to earn money, which was painting signs. And so the ponies made me a really good sign painter because they kept eating. And then it was in my middle 20s, it was when it finally occurred to me, hey, I ought to be a sign painter. And then as soon as I had that intention, I set in motion everything it took for me to acquire all the knowledge so I could become an all around sign painter.
yeah, I want to back up a little bit. I mean, tell me about how did you get involved with the Liberty Ponies? I mean, what started you down that path?
Oh, I just became fascinated while I was sitting at the drums, adding, making the performance even better for the performers and the audience and everything. I would become amazed by what these animal trainers had the animals trained to do. And I became fascinated with that. And it was kind of a godsend at the same time, too, because of my childhood with the older brother with the frustrating condition, I had been reluctantly, I had been socially reluctant up until that point. And I somehow found a place where I can fit in with the animals. And so the animals actually introduced me to a practical way to be in relationship with other living beings. And so it was the ponies and horses first, and then I gradually became more and more of a people person until today. I'm like people are like the one of the most important uh, parts of living an interesting life is maximizing the experience that we can have with other people.
Yeah, yeah. It's so cool that it started with animals first because I think
Huh?
a lot of people could probably relate to that concept
Yeah.
as well. So, um, so now how do you line up these road trips that you're currently on now? Like how do you go about setting up your route and the places you're going to go and the stores that you're going to go and work at?
The planning takes place in the wintertime. I do all the planning in January and February. And since I've been doing it so long, I pretty much go back to the same Harley Davidson stores I go to every year. And every once in a while, something will change. Like Harley Davidson just moved an event from Labor Day weekend to the middle of July. And that kind of makes it so that I either have I have to disappoint a couple Harley stores, and then it leaves me something else. So it's all, there's a certain amount of flexibility required. And then there are other opportunities that occur along the way. But yeah, all of that planning takes place in January and February.
Yeah. And then are you staying right there at the store each time?
Yeah, I put the RV right behind the building and typically run the electric cord underneath the door and plug it into the wall inside the building and just live right here on the property. And you know what's interesting is people will ask me, my God, you must put a lot of miles on that rig every year. And I go, I drive less when I'm on the road than when I'm at home. Because it's just like here, I drive once a week, and once I get here, there's a diner 3/4 of a mile away. So I get my morning walk in the morning, walk up to the diner, have my breakfast, and then walk back. And then since the rig is right here on the property, I walk from the rig to the booth and work in the booth all day, walk to the rig, have lunch, walk back to the booth, work all day and stuff. So I end up doing very little driving during the week. And then I have one big jump at the end of the week to the next Harley store.
Right. Then how long is your, for lack of a better term, your tour? How long does that, how many months are you out there on the road doing this?
That's exactly the right word to be using for my tour. I explain I have a 7-month tour or a 7-month route. Yeah, that takes me, and because what I've discovered since I have a home in Florida, I've discovered I don't have the sense of humor it takes to go through the summer down there.
Yeah, amen to that.
It's like 100 degrees down there right now.
Yeah.
So I like being up north for that reason. And the reason for the length of my tour is because the temperature goes up to 90 in April. That means it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had, after my mom and dad got divorced, I'd lived in Florida with her for 4 years. And, as soon as school was out, I would go back to Pennsylvania and spend the entire summer with my father and literally come back. Like if school started on Monday, I would come back on, Friday or Saturday. And when I moved back to Pennsylvania with my dad, I went down planning on doing the same thing in Florida. I was spending the entire summer there. And I was like 2 weeks in and I was telling her like, man, I can't do this. Like I can't do, I love you, but I can't do this. Like this weather is just out of hand, So
Yeah.
we learn it now, but yeah, we are generally out of there by February or March and starting
Yeah.
to head north. So
Yeah.
we were there in June a couple of years ago because my one cousin was celebrating his 60th birthday, and just a couple of weeks we were there in June. It was rough. It was rough,
Yeah.
rough. But in the winter, I'll take it all the time in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but so we talked about a lot of different things. I mean, I think this conversation could go on for quite some time. Is there anything we missed that you think would be valuable to the listeners?
About living an interesting life,
Yeah.
being a blessing to others. Yeah. It's really interesting that my childhood giving me the what a frustrating situation that made me socially reluctant, and then this life that I've been, I guess, life in the fast lane. It forces you through a whole bunch of challenging opportunities that forced evolution to take place, um, and becoming a different person. So I think that probably the one little thing I could give the listening audience in regards to some encouragement would be to, because what we've been trained, you mentioned it earlier, we've been trained by our surroundings to to accept and go with the flow and do things in a certain order and forget about that inner feeling that gives us a nudge, the inspiration to nudge us out on the highway. We sort of repress that those inclinations as in the name of maturity and acquiring wealth and all these other things that seem to be the thing that society wants us to all have. And my encouragement is that there is a way to do all of it. There's a way to live an interesting life. There's a way to maximize on all of the experiences that take place. There's no good reason to shirk away from a challenge because it makes us uncomfortable, when we realize that, wait a minute, being uncomfortable is going to force me to grow and become stronger and learn a new skill so that I can handle this, which is a strange thing. So my word of encouragement is to become open-minded to things that are new and different, and stop being cautious and become bold and unstoppable.
Yeah. I love that. Is so the stops on your tour, are they listed on your website somewhere? Like, if somebody's out there listening, I mean, how would they find out where you are if they want to reach out to you, get some work done?
Yep. The easiest way to contact me and to see where I'm going to be during the tour is to refer to my website, which is real easy to remember, letterfly.com.
Awesome. And information about the books there, about your art, about the tour. So basically everything they need to find out about Dave is going to be on the website. I love that.
Yep. And there's a place where you can sign up to receive my newsletter so that you can receive ongoing updates in regards to when the next book is going to be out and what's going on during the summertime route across America. And yeah, definitely.
Cool. So Dave, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So what's one of the little things that Dave does to make the world a little bit better place?
Well, I learned this from a mentor from Colorado years ago, and I'm carrying his banner now that he's gone. And he had made the commitment to himself that first thing in the morning, he decided, today I'm going to make 3 people laugh. And so that empowers the way that he goes about embracing the day, looking for a way to be a blessing to the people around him, and by having fun. So if I can do something to encourage your audiences, it would be to hey, let's go have some fun today. And how are we going to do that? We're going to go find somebody and make them laugh.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer, Dave. I really appreciate it. Maybe someday we bump into each other on the road, or in Florida down there at your place. Would love to sit down and talk to you even more. But for those out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com. And while there, pick up a copy of one of my books. And again, Dave, really appreciate the time. This is a great conversation.
Great. Well, come on down to Art Park and we'll have a campfire.
You bet.
All right, brother.
Thank you very much.
Turn up.